Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here. In this video, we're talking about PlayStation 3, Nintendo Switch 2, 8-bit DOE, Windows on Android, and more. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off here talking about Windows on Android with Winlater. And I talked about this one in yesterday's video, but there is something I want to clarify. I misstated that Winlater was open source, but it is not. And that is super unfortunate as it does use open source components. On the releases page for Winlater, you can see that there is a source code zip and tar.gz file. But when you open it up, it's just a licensing file. There's no source code there. Since this is using open source stuff and it's not providing the source code, it's technically violating GPL licensing. And therefore, no, I can't recommend using Winlater. We've got no idea what's in it. It's violating licensing, and it's a no from me. But moving on, and you know it's not violating any licensing and does get the okay from me. RPCS3, and RPCS3 just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, version 0.0.29 alpha is the latest update, and this one is pretty big. Since version 0.0.28, which was released just back in June, 17 contributors have made 307 commits. And 369 files have been changed. Nice. The changelog is massive. There's a whole bunch of bug fixes and improvements, and even more games are working with RPCS3. In previous videos, we talked about them adding support for Tekken Tag Tournament 2 Unlimited and Dragon Ball Zenkai Battle. And we also talked about their game compatibility list, with 0 games showing as nothing and 0 games showing as bootable. RPCS3 is amazing. If you haven't updated it in a while, you may want to check out the latest build. Next up, we're talking about 8-bit DOE, and today 8-bit DOE unveiled a brand new keyboard. A retro mechanical keyboard, actually 2 of them. The first one here is inspired by the NES called the N Edition. And the second one here is inspired by the Famicom called the Fami Edition. These keyboards have a very weird feature, and that's these giant macro buttons that you can attach to them. I'm not sure on how I feel about them, but the keyboard itself is gorgeous. It can connect via Bluetooth, 2.4G wireless, or wired via USB-C. They say it's compatible with Windows and Android, but I'm assuming it's also compatible with Linux. For the micro switches in these things, they say they're using KLV2 white box switches, and the price here is $100. Now for some reference here, I'm currently using a Newfie Air 75, and I absolutely love this keyboard, and I'd highly recommend it. But for $30 less, that 8-bit DOE is looking very attractive. Let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below. Next up, we're talking about Nintendo's next new console, which is not going to be called Nintendo Switch 2. At least, I don't think so. Maybe new Nintendo Switch U or something like that. Anyways, here Video Games Chronicle has reported that Nintendo is targeting 2024 for its next generation. Absolutely no surprise here. This article has a lot of people talking, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. Anyways, here Nintendo is apparently targeting the second half of 2024 to release this thing. And there is a controversial decision here. It looks like it might launch with an LCD screen instead of an OLED just to keep prices down. Now, arguably controversial screen choice aside, I think one of the biggest questions here is whether or not the next generation console will be backwards compatible. A lot of people are thinking it's probably not going to be, and I think that would be a real big disservice to the fans of Nintendo and customers of Nintendo. But at the same time here, it may generate quite a bit of profit considering a lot of people would be forced to upgrade. To be honest with you, I'm very curious to see what Nintendo's going to do here. My gut tells me they will have backward compatibility, but it'll be via cloud gaming. Let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. And speaking about cloud gaming, or at least flying close to the clouds, we're talking about a non-cloud game called Megacopter Blades of the Goddess. This is a brand new indie game that hasn't released just yet on Steam, but it is coming to Steam. And personally here, I think this game looks really darn good. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Is this indie game up your alley? Unfortunately, there is no price or release date on this one, and this is not a paid ad. I just like to spotlight indie games from time to time. And speaking about indie games, next up we're talking about Broforce Forever. Broforce Forever is a 100% free update if you already have Broforce. It's releasing on August 8th, and it features a whole bunch of new bros. Broforce Forever also has brand new features, new levels, and more. And feel free to check out this YouTube video, which I will drop a link to in the description below. Moving on, and we're talking about Debian-based Linux distribution MX Linux, which just got a brand new update. So MX23 is the latest release here, and it does feature Linux kernel 6.1, and you can get it in 3 different versions: XFCE 4.18, Fluxbox 1.3.7, and KDE 5.27. And if you've got some newer hardware and kernel 6.1 is a bit outdated for you, they do have a version here that supports kernel 6.4. It's called the AHS version, which stands for Advanced Hardware Support. Moving on, and we're talking about Lenovo, and it appears that Lenovo is second-guessing their decision to not enter the handheld market, or their decision to enter the handheld market. Lenovo is apparently working on a Windows PC gaming handheld called the Legion Go, and this is not to be mistaken with their previous handheld that was running Android. As always, I'll drop a link to the article in the description below, and feel free to check it out. It looks like it's going to be running Windows 11 and an AMD Phoenix processor. The exact specifications on this do remain a mystery, but at the same time, if it's actually real, we're probably going to find out soon. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. And last up here, we're talking about the Samsung Galaxy S24 Plus, which may have just appeared on Geekbench. And this was spotted by Sam Mobile. I'll drop a link to the article in the description below. So the North American version of the phone is expected to use a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 chip, where there still might be an Exynos processor for those overseas. Anyways, here, this is the Samsung Galaxy S23 Plus benchmarks. And here is the S23 Ultra benchmarks. And here are the whopping benchmarks for the next generation of phone, the S24 Plus. Now, if these scores are real, the single core score and the multi-core score are way higher than the S23 Ultra, which would be probably pretty darn good for emulation. But there is something worth pointing out here. This phone was tested with 8 gigs of RAM. That sounds like a lot. In 2010, that would have been absurd. In 2015, that's still pretty darn good. But in 2023, I wouldn't mind seeing something like 12 here. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos, don't tempt fate, save your state.